really find it amusing that you have to push going live twice just so you can't accidentally go live, but you really have to want to go live. So it's go live and then go live again. So we are now live times 2 for
Okay.
Geek Out number 34. Fatal Alliance, Star Wars, The Old Republic, Book 1 by publication order. Though when we looked online, I guess they did a couple prequels, but we started here covering it on our live stream book discussions. And yeah, really looking forward to geeking out over the book. How you doing, Pete?
I'm doing well. Yeah, it was an interesting one. I haven't been really in the Star Wars space in a while, so it was a good flashback.
Yeah, I was thinking about that leading up to the stream. How many Star Wars books have you actually read and or listened to?
I want to say way back in the day, there was a Jedi Apprentice one
Okay, I was wondering if you
that
read
I
those series.
read, and it was pretty small.
Hmm.
But then other than that, it's just been the movies.
Yeah, the Jedi Apprentice series, going from memory, I want to say Judd Watson, maybe. Um, they're like a fourth, fifth grade reading level. That was one of the series that kind of got me into reading when I was younger. And I started with those and eventually jumped up to like Dragonlance and everything else. But that's neither here nor there. Hey, people are paying attention. Getting some love for the mic there, Pete.
Yeah, it's a new one, but an old one, but technical difficulties. And then it turns out that overkill is the only way to get kills. So it is a M audio producer USB microphone. A buddy gave it to me because he's like, oh, hey, you've messed with FL Studios. How about you take this and record stuff? And I was trying it, and I kept running into a problem of getting a bunch of whenever I plugged it in, the volumes were too low. But then I would boost the audio through Windows, and then I'd just get a bunch of background and static. But with what I've learned now, I can add a noise gate to cut out the static, and then I can still get the volume high enough. But the overkill bit is I'm using an arm that's supposed to be for my camera or a light, and I jerry rigged the pin off of my like original stand and stuck it on my arm. So I feel pretty snazzy with it. So I'm
Yeah, yeah. Let us know if there's any audio challenges on your guys' end as we go along.
and
Yeah,
apologize for the mic technique.
hey, it gets it done. It gets it done, right?
It's just something I need to be aware of because I'm used to it just being on my head, so you can't really lose it.
Yeah. So one of the many reasons why I wanted to get into this book and talk about it a bit was we like to play in the lit RPG space. Um, and for a lot of reasons, one of those being to get kind of the video game MMO feels that we don't have the time to commit to anymore. And this series is a product of BioWare and LucasArts, where they essentially introduced a series for the lore of the Knights of the Old Republic MMORPG. And both Peter and myself played it when it first came out with a group of guys. We played longer than some, but not as long as a number of other friends that played it. And the game at the time was just kind of like groundbreaking, right? From what I remember, it was one of the first MMOs that had was it voice actors and narrators for like all the different campaigns, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, they had like legit cinematic lore.
Mm-hmm. And the storylines were a lot of fun, all unique to the different classes that you played. And I don't know if you still have it pulled up, Pete, but we went through right before, and yeah, Boltec did as well. Really fun MMO. And in this book, they represented every single one of the classes in the storyline. And I think it did it relatively well. Don't you think so, Pete?
It spent more time on some than others, but
Right.
that's just for developing and keeping the story going.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think each one was at least represented.
Mm-hmm. Because we had, the Jedi Knight, the Jedi Counselor, the Sith Warrior, the Sith Inquisitor, the Trooper, the Bounty Hunter, the Smuggler, and the Imperial Agent, all wrapped up in this storyline. Um, and yeah, I mean, we grew up on Star Wars. Um, I remember watching the first three episodes 4 through 6 when we were younger, and then our generation was the prequels. The prequels came out when we were growing up.
Man, I think that was the first game we got mom to play with us. We had the Star Wars pod racing game for
Oh, yes.
N64.
Yes. That game's such a classic. Such a classic. So, this book takes place 3,500 years before Darth Vader. So it's like way, way back when there was still like the Sith Council, very much like the Jedi Council. And the Empire and the Republic, at the point of the story, um, there's peace, but there's not peace, right? Like they're not
Yeah, it's not
officially at
open war,
war.
but they're still trying to take everybody
Yeah,
out.
yeah, the posturing, the competing for resources. Um, yeah, the pod racing game is still a classic.
Yeah, we
Um,
played with Karen as well.
yeah, and it's just a lot of fun to because you hear about the lore a little bit in the TV series, but then to actually go back and see the Star Wars realm, in quote unquote ancient times. Because I've read a lot more Star Wars books than just the Jedi Apprentice. I also read a lot of the ones with um, Luke, or not Luke, Han and Leia's kids, as they trained with Luke. Even though I don't know if those are canon anymore now that Disney has taken over and made the next 3 videos. Um,
Well, okay, that's something completely side rant. Star
go for it.
Wars has developed an amazing world, universe, powers, set of rules, and I don't see why more people can't just play in it. I'm drawing a blank on the verbiage, but for anime, for example, there's the canon or the main line, and then I
Mm-hmm.
think it's like AVO. It's like alternate
Oh.
something something. Anyway, it's essentially saying, hey, this story has nothing to do with the rest of the main story, but it's just us playing in the world. And
Mm-hmm.
there is so much they could be adding to. The majority of the Star Wars books kind of encompass everything, or in the movies too, where you've got, the Jedi, the Sith, the Republic, the Empire, and you've got, all these different things. And it's more of a, I guess, big picture thing. But back on for the pod racing, what is it, Tatooine? Like
Mm-hmm.
I could totally see, like, I guess not necessarily average Joe style, but a little more like I could spend a whole movie book on just one world. I get it. It's
Yeah.
sci-fi-esque and they enjoy, their spaceships and traveling to different places and all these other people we got to meet. But
Let's have the fun, right?
I wish they could, yeah, I get why they can't and other people can't play because you got to pay to play if they own the space. But
Yeah. I would love to see more stories in the Star Wars universe. Um,
yeah, because what I was thinking is after Disney pretty much destroyed everything, I wanted to see drawing a blank, A Team or Avenger style Star Wars where you have, some random podunk out of the way star system and you have your ragtag group of, superheroes, so to speak. And it's not like Jedi and Sith, but the Jedi primarily go towards like these are not the droids you're looking for and the force push and the
yeah.
general stuff where the Sith are more like I'm going to force choke you and I'm going to do the lightning and all of that. So they could still have two people using force powers, but one more specialized one way, one the other way. Have your, Mandalorian with his decked out armor, which is essentially Iron Man on steroids. And then I could easily I would enjoy a spin-off of these powers being put to use for justice on a random planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll keep looking. There's a lot of Star Wars books out there. Um, I did not know that anything after 425 2014 is considered canon. Does that include books published? Question mark, maybe. A lot of the books I read were definitely published before 2014. I think a lot of them were even books written, that go through Lucasfilm Story Group. Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. Um, yeah. So back onto this book. Um, the Old Republic, back when everything was peaceful. They keep referring to the Treaty of Coruscant, which I believe means like everybody's kind of playing well with others. We have numerous Sith, numerous Jedi. Mandalore is still big and powerful. And so we're caught between these three powers in this storyline, right? We also get the Hutts. And in a lot of ways, we were talking about this before we hopped on the live stream, that it was nice and refreshing the fact that it was a different story, but at the same time, it's still the same story. Go ahead, Pete. Take it away.
My first listen through of this book, I was like, okay, really? Like, what's up with Sith people chopping off people's hands? Like, I've already seen that, the whole Luke, I am your father bit. Like, okay, it wasn't quite like that. We chopped off a hand.
Luke, I am your mother.
And then, it was the same thing. Like, the main climax or the plot to it all was, a Sith, was taken from her parents, and then her mother goes off and does other stuff, and it's just like, okay, yes. And then we had, the giant droid army, which, I guess it was clone army for the other one, but it's still like, the book did well orchestrating 4 different viewpoints and bringing them all together. It had a little short time hop things where like literally you would play out the scene from one perspective and then it would switch over to the other person's perspective. So like a third person and a first person view of like a short snippet of a scene. So that wasn't too bad, but it did well orchestrating the, different parts and bringing them all together. And then, of course, at the end, making you want more in the pros before epilogue.
Yeah, epilogue.
In the epilogue, it, encompassed or included information that would have been nice earlier, but, kind of brings it all together and makes you want to learn more about their story.
Yeah.
Everybody's going off into their great new adventures.
Of course.
Our Sith Padawan has, or apprentice.
Yeah, I believe he's apprentice.
Sith apprentice has lost or killed the master, now has a new one. Our, Jedi apprentice is now a Jedi Knight. Our smuggler is off, messing up people and found the bounty hunter. So,
yes. Or the bounty hunter found him, right? And scheduled the meeting.
Well, but it might have. There was a meeting, but I thought Jet Nebula, who goes by some other name, kind of set up the bounty hunter because
yes.
So anyway,
let's bust through a bit of the chronological piece, right? So we start off for the most part on Coruscant, where we get introduced to everyone, right? We have our Imperial Agent, who's in a high-ranking office there for the Republic. We have our Republic elite Black Star trooper who meets our Jedi Padawan in Coruscant as they duke it out with the Mandalorian Dal Striver, right?
Yeah, who's essentially, it looks like he's just picking on a street gang or whatnot.
Right. But he's trying to track down this droid maker who turns out to be not, going back to, was it episode 5 where we have the whole reveal with Luke and Darth Vader. Here we have a bit of a role reversal where like you said, the Sith apprentice finds out that her mother is the one we're looking for. And the bounty hunter pretty much kicks everybody's butts, drawing them all into this big conflict to try to figure out who this lady is that was once a droid maker. And then, those 3 players go off and, talk to their masters and different things. And
I guess the whole thing that set it up was, Jet Nebula, the smuggler, was out and about and intercepted a ship and was, pretty much like, hey, we're going to board you. They're like, nope, we're on a diplomatic mission. Just kidding. And blew themselves up. But then something survived. And due to his first mate or whatever, they wanted to give all the stuff to the Hutts. And the Hutts are, trying to essentially pit everyone against each other so that they can get more profit or value out of it. And then we have the scene you spoke of, getting everybody together. And then, the second big arc or big scene is where all the pieces are kind of coming together. We get our Imperial Agent, who's trying to play both sides, collecting information, comes down from essentially the Jedi Order, and they're like, hey, so I don't have time. I need you to look into this. It's important.
Yes.
And then, oh man, I had a way to remember his freaking name, but...
Which one?
Oh, the Imperial Agent guy playing both sides.
Oh, yeah. He was an interesting character. Ulavi? No?
Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah, close enough. So yeah, like the pot gets stirred, gets everybody's attention, and we find out that Jet Nebula ends up taking the remains of the convoy or whatever that we run into in the beginning to the Hutts, right? And the Hutts are having this auction. So the Hutts invite all the major players to come hang out with them and pretty much do this bidding, right?
Yeah.
And I really get a kick out of the fact that they're like, oh, we're going to keep everything anonymous. And Ulavi is like, well, if it's all anonymous, how are we going to know that they're legit bets, right? And it's like, oh, you just better bet what you think it's worth. I'm like, that's a very Hutt thing to do, right? Like, we're going to
I mean, it
protect
was a Hutt
everybody's
thing
identity, quote
for
unquote.
all
Yeah.
the way around, because they all knew the other ones were interested, because that's how they got the other guys involved, because they were like, oh, hey, you might want to bid against this other thing, and we know both of you guys need the resources from the world, so come on down. And yeah. And then same thing for both the Sith and the Jedi side. They were like, oh, well, we don't want to send any high-ranking people because we don't want them to think we're that important. And same thing for freaking the Republic and the Empire. They were like, oh, yeah, we'll just send an envoy. We'll just send this person, None of the big-name players. And then when it finally comes down to, brass tacks or the final hour, we got all the big-name players like, what? Yes. I wasn't expecting that. Just kidding. I'm caught up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun though, because like as much as everything was the same in a lot of ways, I thought the Hexes were kind of a fun, unique enemy, right? Because like, okay, what's going to be able to really be a threat to all these big powers and all these big players? Like we have the Sith, we have the Jedi, and then we have the Mandalorian, who's there but not there, kind of like
neutral-esque.
Yeah, sitting on the sidelines. And so they have the big confrontation with the Hutts, where the Hexes pretty much. I'm trying to think, do they actually get away, or
I don't think any of them actually get away, because it's pretty much like, oh, the Hutts are trying to sell it. Everybody shows up. They're like, hey, we want to see it. We get our little Jet Nebula. I know you're a faker to Ula. And then the Sith apprentice, is trying to sneak in and freaking melt everything to get through. Meanwhile, the Jedi apprentice is, being stealthy and trying to figure everything out. Then the Mandalorian pops out of nowhere, captures Ula, and then all of a sudden now we've got our Black Star person helping out to find Ula, and we find the droid, and and then everyone's like, oh, well, if they're here, I've got to fight my way to it. The auction's off. Let's just go get it. And then that's where. So that's another part they did very well with, because we didn't know anything about what they salvaged off of the ship. And then, everybody's fighting to get to it. And then it slowly built up the scene where we figure out what's going on with the droids and what they are. Because all of a sudden, from the, supposed to be the vault, now has these Hexes or all these droids popping out, and we're like, wait a minute, if they have a way in, why didn't they just grab it and go? And then there's another scene where they're trying to kill them, but they're adapting, and they're able to kind of redirect the damage to them to the wall so that they can break through.
Yeah.
And just the way they adapt, and then like after all the smoke clears and we took care of the droids, everybody kind of finds their own way to, means to an end.
Right.
Where the Mandalorian, gets the Navicom or whatever so he can decode it and figure out the location. And then the Sith ends up finding a droid, having someone who works on droids, hack into the system to more or less figure out the homing beacon. And then the Jedis, pull out I have telekinetic powers, and even though I can't use it, I can use it. And there was a lot of good life lessons there for me. And I always try to pull a couple out of every book. But more or less, the Jedi Padawan, was overthinking everything and was trying to get into his zen and his mindset and really, set everything up so that it can just happen and he doesn't have to exert any effort after the fact. Meanwhile, the inflappable Black Star, not Black Star, never not a Black Star chick. Can't think of her name. Anyway, she is pretty much like, just do it. You're wasting your time thinking, you're psyching yourself out. It's not about, the preparation. It's about going through the motions. And so he's finally like, all right, you know what? You think I got it that easy? And then he does it and it all works out. Anyway, so we all end up at the third, which is pretty much the main or the final section. The final arc. And oh man, it's a mess every which way. This planet is uncharted. This planet has a lot of resources, which both the Republic and the Empire want. Mm-hmm. I think the Republic shows up first. The leader of, the person, Shan? I don't know. Anyway, our Padawan's master that's on the Jedi Council tries to hail the planet. We get our catchphrase, we do not respect your authority.
Or I think it's recognize. We do not recognize your authority.
I don't know.
Maybe
it was just a South Park meme that kept rolling through my head every time I heard it. Respect my authority. That was probably what it was. Anyway, so then we get the Hexes that attack us from the ground. And of course, Jet Nebula, who I'm curious if he has some sort of implant or something, because the way him and his droid communicate is pretty on the down low. But we do get a little bit of insight when the droid is using hand signs or whatnot, because he keeps breaking his vocoder, because if you can't respond to people giving you directions, how can you say you've heard them or whatever?
Yeah. He's still a mystery. We learned a lot about the different characters as we went along. But I'm wondering if we'll see more of him in the series. But yeah, he was kind of fun as he kept nudging the Imperial Agent and everything, calling him a faker and, his good read on people and everything else.
Yeah, he was definitely pulling the strings in the background and freaking clutched it at the end there, but it didn't matter because, it failed. But
yeah, he found a way to be involved and to help kind of move the pieces on the board without being
in the limelight.
Or being heavy-handed about it, right? Which I thought was pretty fun to watch. And he's a smuggler, so he's playing along to that kind of that smuggler vibe. But yeah, the book was action-packed, but it wasn't all action, which I can appreciate. The final climax, though, was really interesting. Again, we have the Mandalorian sitting off on the sidelines, observing, taking pictures, trying to figure pieces out. And then, like you said, the Republic shows up and the Empire shows up, and they try to defeat the Hexes, these robots that can learn and grow and adapt, which are created by the Sith apprentice mother, right? And they've pretty much taken this planet I think we already established it, but it is just so resource intense that everybody wants this planet. So, and everybody wants this hex technology. And the hexes don't respect or recognize anybody's authority. And they just start taking over ships. And I think like they pretty much lose like each side loses like half of their fleet, more or
Yeah,
less.
half of what they brought on.
Yeah, so like everybody's numbers are diminished.
Yeah.
It was kind of fun to watch the Sith side of things, where the Sith masters all true Sith aggression. You know, go go go, kill kill kill, headstrong, and the apprentice is like, no, like we need to avoid the hexes. They're just turning our armaments against us, and kind of like watching their relationship and how they kind of navigate that. And then you get to see like the Jedi side of things as the apprentice, who he gets turned down for becoming a Jedi Knight at the beginning because he didn't master his
telekinetic stuff where he can't
yeah.
like see the future. He's supposed to be able to touch an object and more or less see its origin or see where it's from.
Yeah, so like get to see him with his master, who is pretty much like the equivalent of Yoda, from the stuff that we're familiar with. Like she's the head of the council. So this Jedi apprentice is like pretty big stuff, right? And get to see their interactions and the contrast between the Sith relationship and the Jedi relationship. And I really enjoy, jumping ahead a little bit, when they plan the ground assault and they switch apprentices, right? And I thought that was
very well played out there, where pretty much the Sith Lord, who looks like death incarnate because he sleeps for an hour, kind of sort of, in his coffin where there's no light and there's no air, and essentially he just has to, you know, be close to death and live off of his own energy. Anyway, so creepy dude, Sith, generic stuff.
Are all Sith masters like vampires or something? You know,
I don't know. I think
they avoid the light. They have weird things with breathing. Anyway.
But yeah, how he's pretty much like, no, I'm going to take your apprentice and you take mine. And then Jedi's like, oh, yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
Is that all you need? You know, how you care about the other two? Just kind of blows them off. And it was played out well.
The politics and everything. So a step back before we get to that scene, after they lose half their forces, the Mandalorian kind of calls all the parties together and is like, hey, here's some pictures. You know, you guys were wondering how long this place has been here. You speculated, 20 years, 30 years, still relatively new. Well, looking at these pictures, they've probably only been here a couple weeks, right? And the hexes are just like turning this resource intense place into like a full industrial complex powerhouse, scaling it up. And the Mandalorians pretty much like, if we wait for reinforcements, we won't stand a chance.
Yeah, like only take 1 decade or something for these to take over everything.
1 generation. And if you don't eliminate all of them, they could pretty much go out and reduplicate, right? And that was the whole fear, 2 turns into 4, 4 turns into 16, 6, so on and so forth. And yeah, so they do their posturing, and the Mandalorian's like, I'm not going to be in charge. But the Imperial Agent is able to make contact, or he goes and he pretty much leaves with the Sith apprentice, and he makes contact with the Sith master. He's like, hey, I'm actually for the Empire. I've just been chilling with the Republic the whole time. I'm,
Double agent.
yeah, talk to Watcher 3. And so they agree to put him as the ultimate de facto guy in charge.
Oh,
right?
well, yeah, I thought that was kind of clever. He pulls it off to bring them to the side, and then you got to know the freaking, our Jedi Council lady knew all along, and she was like, oh, yeah, how about we rely on him again to be over all of it? But it's going to keep him busy. He's not going to be able to pull any strings because that's something that's going to dedicate and divide and require all of your attention.
Mm-hmm.
So even if he is, involved on both sides, because that's the only way the Sith, guy took him seriously and all that.
Yeah, and he's such an interesting character too, right? One of the things I enjoy about reading in books is like walking a mile in their shoes. And when I was younger, I remember watching Star Wars, and even one of the main characters talks about how, like, everything's black and white, but it's not black and white. But I remember being younger and thinking, oh, Sith is evil, Jedis are good, etc., etc. But here we have this Imperial agent, and just kind of like looking through his eyes, all the reasons why he likes and embraces the Empire, and what it can do for its citizens. Get a little empathy for his position, and yeah,
Well, throughout the battle and towards the end with Jet and Nebula's help, he's just kind of, trying to survive and trying to do what's right.
mm-hmm.
And Jet, lays it softballs it to him. He's like, yeah, and I can't tell which side you're on. I know how it's supposed to work out. I know you're for them and helping out these other guys, but, to me, it looks like you're just trying to do the right thing.
Yeah. He had a way with words and knew how to kind of push people where he needed them to be, right? Managed to get him isolated where his droid ends up going through and cracking all these codes, right? The Imperial and Republic codes. And yeah, man, the final battle was pretty intense.
Yeah.
As they're going and taking on the Hexes.
And well, yet again, like, the book did so well orchestrating all of the different timelines at the same time, and the ending, or where people, kind of their final trial was good, because the Black Star, Black Ops lady who's now with us ends up in a position of power again. She left because she ratted out a superior officer because he was corrupt, and because of not wanting the company or the people to look bad, they pretty much swept it under the rug, but still deposed the guy anyway. So due to her not being able to explain or defend herself, she left because it was odd. And just the simple fact of, while in our first scene, she's waiting for the Jedi apprentice to get back from talking to the Jedi master, she runs into someone on the street, and she's in her like beat up armor, and the guy's like, oh, hey, I know you, you're Toxic Moxla or whatever from Kifu or something. And then during our final assault, he's there again. He's actually enlisted. He actually got deployed here, small world kind of deal, or I guess small universe. And then they have a scene where her chute or whatever, her jetpack thingy fails, and he has a chance to save her. He hesitates, but then he calls for backup, and they end up actually saving her. And then same thing, they're on the giant sky hook, and it's the roles are reversed where he takes damage and he's now venting or, leaking oxygen or whatnot, and she's able to, take the heat off and then also patch him up. And
Yeah.
there's that whole that nice scene where, oh man, I wish I had the quote in front of me. It's essentially like, yeah, we never learned, fireworks are better from, far away, because essentially
Yeah.
they have this giant, spaceship falling on them because it's been taken out of commission. So they're, gonna ram them pretty much. And then, yeah, you get the whole camaraderie. So she gets her just desserts or her good stuff. And then, the Imperial agent who's just trying to do the right thing has Jet Nebula take over all the ships and orchestrate them so that they can, have a successful final assault, because everyone's getting low on all their forces. So they know if they get too low, then they're just going to be stomped out as soon as the truce is over. And then, the Jedi apprentice who got denied for becoming, a Jedi Knight gets his moment versus the Sith Lord, where, he goes toe to toe, and he pretty much, is starting to think about what the Sith Lord is saying, and, has his internal struggle and comes out the other side just fine. And then you've got the Sith apprentice who is struggling with her identity because she didn't know her parents, and then the Sith Lord removes the block, and now it's like, well, this is my mother, they tried to hide me. And then she made a clone of her, kept some of her DNA, made a clone of her daughter because she lost her, and she was essentially keeping her in fluids that suppress her force powers and all this and that. And then she gets her just desserts when she takes out her master. It's just like the book orchestrated all their storylines beautifully and made me invested in the characters. And then it wrapped it all up where each one of them, got what they deserved.
Yeah. It was satisfying. It was satisfying. So many books leave us hanging, right? Especially when they're series. Yeah.
And the whole like twist with them throwing the whole planet into the black hole. Like at first I was like, really? You're going to throw that away? But then more and more I was thinking about it. It's like, yeah, because of the parameters and the programming, you didn't want to be trapped, but there's no way they're gone. It's one's on a ship somewhere, one adapted, did other stuff, and now it's the same yet different protocols. And we still have that one that got destroyed that we got the information for getting over there. Like they're going to pop back up, and that's fine. And it was. Yeah. And now when they pop back up, they have, the gene sampler is now in a black hole and gone, and Axe, the Sith apprentice, is the only one who has a genetic code that they may or may not obey. But then you always have the paradox of broken droids, which Jet Nebula has a broken droid that was discontinued. So there's a lot of potential for that. I was a little disappointed we didn't get to see more Mandalorian stuff, but I guess I have a whole side series if I ever get around to watching it. So I guess I'll be okay on that front.
You haven't watched Mandalorian on Disney Plus yet?
I've seen a couple episodes.
It's one of the few series I've watched recently, and it is well worth the time. So, yeah.
And another thing. So these are all Star Wars, the Old Republic. Does that mean there's a New Republic?
Yeah, that's what happens when the Empire takes over.
Yeah, but I don't know. Just because it doesn't exist doesn't mean it's new.
This is true. So, we'll get into it a bit more when we do the spoiler-free review for this, but what did you think of the sound effects? Because
So this had a lot of sound effects for an audiobook.
mhm,
The majority I felt were well executed. The whole like orchestra feels like you felt as if that was a turning point in their journey, that
mhm.
they were really going through the motions and feeling those feelings. Like most of it was pretty good.
It
There,
added to the immersion,
yeah,
right? Like the lightsaber sounds, the blaster fire, stuff like that. I felt it was appropriate. It added to the immersion, and you
I was talking
felt,
about the cinematic scores.
oh, yeah, that when I'm listening to it at 3x speed, I could care less.
Or well, you gotta pick nice numbers because I cranked it down to 2, and it
Okay,
sounds good at 2.
okay. Maybe I need
But
to slow down.
anyway, but yeah, most of it sounded good at 2 times. And the things I didn't enjoy, there's a scene where we first get over to the Hex homeworld or planet, and they attack, and the Jedi's master is trapped in, essentially the spaceship that still has air somehow. And throughout that whole scene, after he suits up and he gets into his spacesuit, there's like constant breathing in your ear. And yeah, I guess that is a big staple for Star Wars, the whole death or Darth Vader breath thing. And this is not that because it's for the Jedi Apprentice. But for me, it was probably because I was like trying to do other stuff at the same time. So while I'm supposed to be listening, there's a difference between hearing voices and being able to distinguish 2 voices versus
Mhm.
feeling like I have someone standing behind me breathing, in my ear. So I didn't really appreciate it. It was relevant, it was immersive, but I felt like it was a little overdone. Like this whole
Okay.
20-minute scene I'm listening to about him jumping between them and, using his force shielded master as a battering ram as he, murks all these robots was great. But then I was like, okay, you're overdoing it with the breathing here.
It makes you want to turn around and be like, is somebody standing behind me just like breathing in my ear right now? Or, oh no, wait, this is my audiobook.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, yeah.
and then the other one that was kind of obnoxious, pretty much the same scene or the same timeline. The Sith gets in her starfighter, and there's like whirring starship sounds, and it wasn't as
Mm,
obnoxious, but it still was like a constant where it's like, okay, I know the scene, I know she's in a spaceship.
yeah.
But yeah, a lot of the like I enjoyed the sounds for the new chapters. I enjoy
Hmm.
or the way that was. I enjoyed the bounty hunter actually had his vocoder on.
Yeah.
Each of the people for our, you know, Black Ops X, Black Ops, not Black Ops chick. She was wearing one at one time, and so she got a vocoder sound, and like
Hmm.
the majority of it was good. I just didn't care for the breathing in my ear.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fine line with sound effects and audiobooks. They can really add a lot to the story and the immersion, or it can just like pull you right
Well,
out of it.
and I think that's also, it depends a lot on environment and what you're listening to it on. Because for a lot of the audiobooks, like I listen to it on, just headphones, and
Hmm.
that's going to create a different sound where a lot of the musical scores for Star Wars is designed to be in kind of like an auditorium or a movie theater style with, surround sound, and you can really get more of the feels to it. And I
Yeah.
did notice that because I listened to a section on my computer with, headphones I have now, which have 7.1 surround sound versus on my earbuds, which, it's just a left, right,
Hmm.
stereo channel.
Hmm.
So I think it could have been, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of potential for it.
Righto. I yeah, I really didn't think about that. The fact that the audiobook might have it at that level of surround sound
Well,
when it comes
plus,
to
like
sound
when you
effects.
download it, you can download it as like a standard, or you can download it as a high definition version. I
Okay.
recently have been downloading the high definition versions. I've just been scalping all the books I'm not currently listening to
Fair
because
enough.
it's on the cloud.
Yes. Good old cloud. Good old cloud. Yeah, we had a lot of friends that played the game. You remember what your main was for the MMO, the Old Republic?
Yeah, we rolled Sith or Empire, and I was
Mm-hmm.
an Imperial Agent, but I played it as an operative, which was essentially the healing version.
Okay.
Think Warlock, but with healing, because
Okay.
there wasn't a lot of like burst heal. They
Yeah.
had a long cooldown. It was a lot of like dot heals. So I could, like I'd throw out a droid, it would heal slowly, and then I would throw out another droid and it would act as a shield kind of to negate incoming damage. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it wasn't all, I guess, generic. I kind of felt like WoW healer because I also
Yeah.
rolled a healer in WoW where, bubble shield, big heal, flash heal, or they get low and just spam flash. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it had a lot going on with it.
That was something that was kind of fun about the game. It changed up the play styles a little bit, at least when you think of traditional WoW.
Too many buttons. And if I knew now what I knew then about macros and how I can just swap multiple palettes and set one button for swap palette,
Yeah.
I literally ran out of slots to put everything. Like, I thought I was on my game with my 18 button mouse, but it turns out like that doesn't even cover it. And
I
then the
need more
irony,
buttons.
and then like I still had the full side menu thing that I was
Yeah.
still like trying to
Yeah.
click stuff off the side. And oh man. And then the irony of going from something like SWOTAR, where there were so many buttons, to something like WildStar,
I
where
know.
there
I
was
miss
only
it
8
too.
buttons.
Yeah.
Yeah. But WildStar was revolutionary, side note, sidestep, because of, speaking of airplanes, the not tab targeting,
Yeah.
because traditional WoW is tab targeting. You hit tab, it selects a target. You hit tab again. You hit whatever you
Yeah.
have bound. I think I set it up for shift tab to go to the other one where you click on them. And so instead of that, for WildStar, it was like, I'm going to do this ability. Don't stand in the stuff. I have a giant red bar or blue bar or whatever
Uh,
that shoots out of me saying, hey, here's where my damage hits.
yes. Yes.
And it
So
was, yeah, like WildStar also was probably one of my favorites to roll a hybrid class because, kind of same thing here with like, you're like, I'm going to roll a tank, a healer, or a DPS. But for
yeah.
WildStar, you could roll hybrid classes, and it made a lot of sense.
So
But
now
it's dead.
you guys have heard Peter's likes and dislikes of different MMORPGs. Let us know which MMORPGs you're either looking forward to or miss in the comments below. Um, for SWOTAR, I tried to play a hybrid class. I remember playing with a group of guys, and I was playing a bounty hunter, and I was building tank E, but not full blown tank. And it was supposed to be a really good build for
Or was that more,
PvP.
yeah, PvP build?
Yeah, I'm a sucker for PvP. If I'm going to go and play these games, I'm going to pit myself like a true Mandalorian in, the combat pits to prove my worth and my mettle and earn my armor. And yeah, I tried to play a hybrid class. I remember getting a lot of hate from some of the hardcore PvE guys because they're like, we can't take you on this raid. We need you to roll pure tank. I'm like, yeah, but I can do stuff, right?
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah.
one of the things that I'm disappointed with video games in the community because, I get it. Min-maxing is where it's at, but at the same time, when that min-max DPS pulls aggro because he doesn't know the dungeon layout
Hmm.
and you guys wipe because you didn't pull the correct tank. And that was another thing that Star Wars did really well on. Like, it wasn't flat where a tank is a tank and a healer's a healer. They
Hmm.
were good in different respects.
Hmm.
So I might butcher it, but for the Imperial Agent or the operative I rolled, it was good for kind of sustainability for, dot healing to where like I would throw it, I would rotate, I'd throw it, I'd rotate. So I was good against, you know, that kind of stuff. But then the Inquisitor one, they had a funky, like they had bigger heals and then they had AoE heals, which, was good for different scenarios. And then they also
Yeah,
had this funky freaking pull where they could pull an ally. So that DPS who drew aggro and is now running in to pull the next mob because
I
he's
remember
facing the wrong
that.
way, you could just pull him back. And then now that you actually have the pathing set up correct and you can get your AoE
Yes.
or your trooper, who it was kind of a weird feel for a tank, but it made sense in the space, which was
Hmm.
cool. And the fact that they
Range tank.
benefit as a tank because they could splash damage and draw multiple aggro. So now that you've got, yeah, anyway, so the dynamics were cool. I
Did you get some of those old feels listening to this book? Some?
honestly, I've probably been spoiled, and if I saw it as an older book, it was good, but I was still very underwhelmed on the combat
Yeah.
because it was spending more time saying, "Oh, we're looking through this person's eyes and this thing's happened, and then we're looking through this person's eyes and this happened." And it was more like, I guess it was a lot more of
Focusing big
their
picture.
morals and values and what's going on,
Yeah.
like the whole
Yeah.
time, the very first time we're at the Hutt's palace and we are fighting amongst ourselves and the hexes or the droids roll out, yeah, we get to see a little bit of the adaptiveness, we get to see a little bit of the combat, but most of it is, like three people say, how many of them are in there? And it's like, okay, I get it. Like, yeah, we're switching perspectives. And it's like, okay, that's cool. And
Right.
then in the middle of this battle, we have our side dialogue where we're saying, well, if they're going this way and they're in, the spot where we need to be that's holding all the stuff, why didn't they go out the way they came? Why are they trying to fight through us? And we switch perspectives and it's like the same dialogue in their head. And then it comes back and it's like, well, they're deflecting that right into that wall, but they broke through this other stuff. But then we saw that strand stuff. And I'm like,
Yeah.
blow more stuff up. So,
And as
yeah.
the reader, sitting in the passenger seat, all that stuff can happen, but we don't need to reiterate it each perspective shift, right?
Like, it did good because I guess for me, like, I was in the mindset of blow stuff up, but in the
When are you
overarching
not?
story, true. And in the story as a whole, like, it was done very well in kind of like that scene after, the Mandalorians got the navigation tom whatever name, and they're like, oh well, we're screwed. No, just kidding. And then like it all made sense and helped out, and everybody's kind of figuring out different portions, and
Hmm.
kind of goes back to the whole like you kind of need a head of the army to orchestrate it all. And when you end up with several factions trying to work together, it doesn't quite pull through because, the Jedi apprentice was like, hey, stop firing this giant laser or this giant cannon because you're going to be what set them free. And the Hutt guy's like, this is my mistress's palace. I got to protect it. So I'm going to keep firing. And then, the Mandalorian's just sitting back like, I could squash you anytime, but please continue.
Yeah.
And then, he sees him getting away and traps him, but then, there's that back and forth and he can't quite close. And it's.
Yeah. Final thoughts. Would you recommend it? You interested in continuing the series?
I'm interested in continuing it. It does well in the Star Wars universe. I guess a lot of my lit RPGs or the books I've been listening to, there's one main character and I get super invested in them. For this style of book, I guess I didn't realize it before, but it's more about the grand scale and the universe as a whole. And I guess we followed our Jedi apprentice and he's kind of the main character. Mm-hmm. But for the climax and for the ending of it, it was all about the Sith apprentice and how she was taken from her home and her mother created a clone of her and then is controlling it. References, to her own life. Hey, I should be mad at the one who's controlling and manipulating me. It dealt a lot more with the universe as a whole, and that's great. But I don't know. I just wasn't feeling it at the time.
And look at where they're coming from, right?
It's good for Star Wars.
Yeah, this project was supposed to be to build up the lore of this time period. So that was their big central focus was, hey, what can we do to kind of help introduce you to this timeline? Because this is back before most of the published stuff, right? Getting ready for the MMORPG.
And I guess in that regards, normally with Star Wars, I'm always like, oh, I want to be a Jedi or, oh, I want to be the Sith. But for this book and the way it kept all the storylines going, I could easily be a smuggler or an Imperial agent or they
had their strengths.
They weren't in the limelight or whatever. They weren't all on the front line, but, neither is a healer or neither, I felt like all of them served a role and played it well.
Yeah. Good. I enjoyed the series. Going back and rereading it, I remembered it being more than what it was. And I might be thinking about the next book as well, because I think that's about as far as I got. I got through the first maybe 2 or 3 in the series. I know I haven't finished it. And it could have been the nostalgia and the hype for the MMO coming out back when I reread it, or maybe I'm just becoming a book snob. The more and more books I read, the less
that's what
awesome they all seem now that we're at 500 plus audiobooks.
You gotta put them in the right light.
Yeah. And I think that's important when approaching literature is, okay, what hat or perspective or approach am I coming at this with? Because they're not all equal and they're not all trying to do the same things.
So I guess another thing for this book, a lot of the other books I've recently been listening to, I want to listen to it again because I feel like I missed stuff. I feel like there was a lot going on. For this one, for as much as was going on between orchestrating, the 4 or 5 different parties, I had to get a palate cleanser. I had to listen to something else before I came back to it because I wasn't oh, I missed something epic and dramatic. No, it was there's 3 scenes. We spent most of our time orchestrating the people and Yeah. It
There
was
wasn't,
satisfying, but
yeah,
it wasn't as much.
there wasn't any like crazy foreshadowing or big twists that we had going on. It was a lore book, a Star Wars book. Like we know the universe, we kind of know the players, the parties, and yeah, yeah.
Sidestep here. Karen is mentioning the Bobaverse, which we didn't really give her a whole lot of time. We were like, hey, this is awesome. You would love it. And then we're like, just kidding. We're doing it. She's like, life happens. But throughout all that, 4 is coming out. Bobaverse is an Audible original. So they will be releasing the physical, the digital, and the Audible all at the same time. So no discrepancies there.
I
As soon
think
as it
they're
comes out,
actually
we
releasing
are.
Audible beforehand. I don't think the ebook is coming out at the
What?
same time, right? Right?
Hmm. That
Wish,
that feels good. Feels
yeah,
good.
wish we had
Um,
more of that.
but
Um,
yeah, as soon as it comes out, we will be doing it. Nothing set in stone because of
probably,
life.
yeah,
You
probably
know,
October lineup. Try to give some people some time. It's currently scheduled to be released 9/24. Um, and yeah, we got to give some of the normies some time to actually pick it up and listen
well,
to it if
but
they want to
that's
hang
one
out
of
with
the
us.
weird ones because now that Karen's here, I tell this story almost every time, and I know you'll appreciate it. So I remember being a school night and going to the midnight release of Harry Potter. Like it's been so long since the next book's been out, and it has such a backing and a franchise behind it. Like if they're going to want to talk about it, it's going to be at the get go. It's kind of like
Yeah,
anything else. Like you have a big push at the beginning and then people kind of trickle in. I don't know. I think, yeah,
sooner
we'll
than
see.
later in
Yeah.
October.
Yeah. Because
It's
like
actually going
for
to
us,
be,
we could do it in a day
oh yeah,
regardless.
it's
So,
going to be as big as the last two books combined, book 4.
what is that? I can't remember. I felt like those were shorter.
They are shorter. So Heaven's River is going to be almost 17 hours, where book 1 was almost 10, book 2 was almost 9, and book 3 was almost 8. So it'll be as book or as big as the last two books. So
So, I guess in that regards, would be cool. A cool geek out to do overview of all books after you do 4. It's kind of a forward backwards thing where typically we do a hey, this is dedicated to the book, but the only way you can get to where you're going is by going on the path to get there. So
we need to start writing these Peter quotes down for when we come out
I
with Geek Out t-shirts.
And I think that due to the time span in between them all, there's going to be a lot different vibe and feel and writing and so I think there's going to be some discrepancies, but not really. But yeah. I don't know if we would do a whole separate one just for the overview as a whole, but
I'd be
you know,
interested. There's
for
plenty to talk
us,
about in the Bobaverse.
yeah, we pretty
Um,
much have a 2 hour block of time to. If it goes longer, great. If there's
yeah,
engagement, great. If not, if I don't know why I'm yawning, happens. Yeah,
need more caffeine. That's what happens.
I'm out of monsters,
Oh
but
no.
that's because Amazon is out and people are trying to gouge the prices. So
Yeah. So Pete, what we
just the
got
way of
going
the world.
on next week?
That would require pressing buttons, sir, and those buttons would be pressed, and it would be Bow, 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 bow.
Boom.
The Age or The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson.
Yes.
Mistborn Arc 1, Book 3, finishing out the arc. If you have followed along with the other Mistborn ones, this is the linchpin. Like, this, for me, I granted a lot of this is nostalgia feel, a lot of this is random fandom, but like this is what got me into reading because if there wasn't enough combat, I was disappointed. But this one just dealt with it on a different level where it just is intricate and gives you enough information for the series to make you feel like you know what's going on and that you're invested. And then there's a different perspective shift, and yeah, just everything comes. I'm excited for this one.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Brandon Sanderson. Yeah, Boltic there. Brandon Sanderson's where it's at. A phenomenal writer. This is one of his earlier works. I would definitely recommend Mistborn prior to the
It's
Stormlight Archives, but they're both good and different in their own respects.
yes. 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 It is amazing. Really looking forward to that Geek Out session. Currently have it slotted for our typical time, 8 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Almost said the wrong day, even though we almost always do Sunday. Yeah, have a couple guests lined up to join us live. It's going to be a lot of fun. Please show up. Let us know your thoughts. And all of First Era is going to be on the table for us to talk about. Then started from the bottom. Now she's here. So yeah.
I can. Yep. Can't say it. Can't say it. I'm trying to get better at describing things without spoiling it, and it turns out that I have a knack for saying a lot of words without saying much of anything. And yeah,
you should be a writer.
And then it all depends on perspective and mood and whatnot. Because some days I'm just like, like kind of The Land, Book 8, Chapter 37. Like I could have said that in one word, but oh man, the poetic beauty of just streaming that out for a whole chapter.
I see what you did there. It's
work in progress. Curious to see how the mic came through. I was trying not to move and get that proximity effect. But I know it's there. I'm working on it.
Good stuff. May the Force be with you, Book Dragons, and we will hopefully see you next Sunday.
Bye.
Bye.